Assalamu alaikum. Mr. Moderator, our distinguished guests, brothers and sisters, our friends and our enemies.
Let's just use an extreme example, and I'm just using this for the sake of elucidating the point. I'm a Shiite, you're a Sunni, quote unquote, and now you and I are arguing about the legitimacy of Ali and Abu Bakr, etc. And our reality is so far removed from that reality. Not that that reality is not something that should be considered, but you and I, after we argue and fight, we both go back to the ghetto. We both go back to single parent homes. We both go back to neighborhoods where there's drugs. There's, we don't have any ownership in the neighborhood, so on and so forth. We don't have political access, economic access, et cetera, et cetera. So we have changed our focus. Not all of us, but too many of us. We have changed our focus coming into Islam, and we've zeroed in on matters that are just not that important for us. So Islam has no longer become, in a lot of ways, the Quran and the tradition of our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is not really being medicine for our soul and medicine for our families and medicine for our condition. We're in a situation now where we're arguing. I'm Hanbali, you're Shafi'i. I'm Ash'ari, you're Maturidi. And those things are academic. Our problem as a people is not academic, in my view. Our problem is not essentially academic. Our problem is essentially psychological, spiritual. It's not even social and economic and education. It's psychological, and upon the basis of our psychology, we can go into those other areas. That's what I really see as the issue. And we're not treating the religion as the answer to those essential issues. So what ends up happening if we are Salafi, if we are Ash'ari, if we're Nation of Islam, if we are Imam Muhammad, we have the same set of pathologies in our communities. It's just a fact.
Exactly.
I know because I deal with them. I deal with all of them, and all of them have the same set of problems. So it's Negro problems. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's just what it is. We all of us, all of us. When the grandfather dies and you come to the funeral and there's one or two extra families there. That's our story. At least one of the uncles or cousins is in prison for murder or drug deal. This is our story. So on and so forth. So I think that what we have to do, it's a part of our growth, though. That's why I don't condemn any group. I just think that it's a part of our maturity as a people. And Islam came to the way it came in the Nation of Islam. It came as an answer to our social ills when we transitioned. And there were other groups before the nation and the transition of the nation. But I do think that we were not just confronted with a new set of beliefs and ideas. We were confronted with a new culture.
Yes.
A new culture. And for people who, we do have Black culture, but for people who don't, though we have Black culture, we have an identity crisis, whether we like to admit it or not. It's a huge thing for us to become a part of to confront a new culture with this identity crisis, because we had Black music, we had Black language, we had Black everything, but we historically have not been the custodians of our own gifts. So we make the blues music, but we don't own any radio stations or record companies. And it's the same today. So you see what I'm saying? So we're more like a tool or instrument in the hands of others. We don't use our own human resources for our own benefit. So we come into Islam with this identity thing, this identity problem, and many of us, we adopt another identity. And because we adopt, it's like a gang almost. You become a part of the gang, and this has to be your enemy. You have to take up these problems. So that's what I see.
Yeah. And just to follow up on that as well, because you mentioned a lot of, I agree with you on everything pretty much, right? What you're saying right there.
Yeah.
Right. And as well as there's this conundrum where you're mentioning that we're taking up other people's problems, right? And then making them our own problems without actually addressing our own problems. Meanwhile, the Nation of Islam, and you said it in one of your talks, the Nation of Islam, they didn't come with Islam proper, right? They came with something different, and they were reading a lot from the Bible, right? However, one of the things that the nation did is that they used Islam itself, and they exploited the text in order to benefit black people. What do you mean? Like, for example, Malcolm, he's famous lecture, he did, right? And then he's talking about the Quran tells us, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
We don't have no turn the other cheek in the Quran. The Quran tells us that if a
Right.
man hits you, then send him to the cemetery, right? We know
Right.
this what he said, right? And the Quran doesn't say that, but we get the gist. You know what he's talking: an eye for an eye, and a tooth for a tooth, and a
Right.
head for a head, and a life for a life, right? I think that's the House Negro and Field Negro speech. He's talking like that, right?
Yes.
But it's true. That's what the Quran says, right? The Quran doesn't actually say it. Eye for eye, head for head, a life for a life, right? It says that, right?
Right.
So they were using the verses of the Quran to actually help black people move forward, and it was like that for a long time when you talked about blacks and Muslims, and even Worthy Muhammad himself. He himself, right? His whole idea wasn't to keep people under his thumb. It
Right.
was very clear,
Right.
right? And even Imam Siraj Wal Hajj, he's mentioned the conversations that he used to have with Imam Waruddin and whatnot. And Imam Waruddin used to encourage the people in his community to go overseas, study Islam, and come back and bring back knowledge. And I believe, maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, but he mentioned that his father wanted to do the same thing, right? Elijah Muhammad
Right.
wanted to do the same thing, right?
Yeah.
So this is a natural progression of Islam. This is how you naturally progress. You get
Right.
me? And
Right.
every other community was able to naturally progress. We are the only community that I can think of on earth that we are not allowed to naturally progress. We always have some other folk in our business. But
Yeah.
if you could just
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, most people forget, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, we
mm,
know what the Nation of Islam taught, okay? We don't have to
yeah,
beat around that bush. However, what most people fail to take into consideration is the fact that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was not the former, he didn't form those ideas. He was
yeah,
actually taught those ideas by a man from India. And Elijah Muhammad had a third grade education.
mm,
We were already believing that the white man was God. We were
yes,
Christians.
yeah.
So you have to
And
put things
many
in.
of us still do. Let's make no
Yeah, yeah.
mistake.
So,
Most of us got Christian family. I used to get in arguments with my grandma about this before she passed.
right.
Right. So yeah.
So
So go
so
ahead.
so this is the broader context. It's like when you go to before a judge.
Yeah.
And one of the teachings of Islam is that Allah is because he's all knowing, that's why he's the most merciful. So in judgment, like let's say, for example, I was born into a family where my mother was a prostitute, my father was a drug dealer, and I end up a street guy. That's different if I grew up, like in just a two-parent upper middle class household, and then I end up a street guy. I chose, both instances we made the choice, but the pressure upon me to make said choice is different depending upon context. So we have,
Yep.
we have to become mature to have these types of discussions. The presence of Christianity in the life of Black people was so strong, and it still is. To make your point, so here's a man like Elijah Muhammad. He's not the only one, but I'm just using him as an example. Third grade education, taught by a man who tells him this is what Islam is. He doesn't. He goes in that direction.
Yeah.
However, we do know that he sent his son Akbar, who passed away. May Allah forgive him his sins and grant him paradise, to Azhar University. And Akbar Muhammad was one of the first African Americans to go to Azhar, and he was supposed to have a responsibility. He even expressed to Imam Muhammad that he wanted to send him to Azhar. One of the one of the things that we had in our community during the time of Imam Muhammad, we had a delegation of students studying Damascus, Syria, under the Grand Mufti Sheikh Kuftaro, the Grand Mufti of Syria, who has also passed away. But that relationship began during the Nation of Islam. He came, he used to travel the world, and he had students across the world, and he came to America in I think it was late '60s, and he was told by the Muslims here, there's a group of deviant Black people who claim Islam, but they're not real Muslims. They have these wild beliefs. Don't go see them. The Grand Mufti, he said, I'm a da'i. If you're telling me that they're claiming Islam, but they have these wild beliefs, I have to go see him now. And that's exactly what he did. He came to Chicago. He met with Elijah Muhammad, and he offered the opportunity for students to study in the university back then. Elijah Muhammad told him, my people aren't ready now, but one day they will be. That was his response. Um, Fast forward late 90s, the offer's still on the table. Imam Muhammad accepts it. So like a couple of the imams here in Atlanta alongside myself, that that is what they went there. They were a part of that delegation. And several other teachers in our community across the country, they were afforded that opportunity to study in Damascus, Syria. So I'm just using it as an example of how you have to really look at the whole scope. Even Imam Muhammad, he was put out 3 times, but he was, by the time Elijah Muhammad was passing away, Elijah Muhammad had authorized him to become the leader of the Nation of Islam. This was already known, but prior, like a year before Elijah Muhammad's passing, Imam Muhammad at that time was going around to the different communities telling them, my father's going to be passing soon and I'm going to be the new leader and prepare for change. This is like common teaching in the Nation of Islam. So when we observe these things, we have to just see it in full context. Now, this does not excuse, to be clear, this does not excuse false belief. We can't say false belief is false belief. You know what I mean? That just is what it is. But I think what has happened with the Nation of Islam under Minister Farrakhan, they've actually went backwards, to be honest. He has. A lot of these young people, they this is all they know, but particularly him and some of those senior officials with him, they went backwards. So I think what is upon us today is really in the Black Muslim community, no matter what our particular backgrounds are. I think what the challenge is upon us today is to have access to correct Islamic knowledge, number one. And then number two, we need the wherewithal to extract from that knowledge what would be a help for our unique circumstance. And that's what if I had to fault our leadership, I'm just speaking about the nation, not the nation, but I'm saying the nation, the United States, Canada too, I would say.
Paper gold. You see, black folks are chumps. If America were to tell you to bring all the rocks in this country to her, and she'll give you $1 million for it, you'll do it. And the next day she'll tell you we're using rocks for currencies, chump.